Where are you, Molly? Where has she gone? Her words echoed through the dimly lit wine cellar. Ellen proceeded with caution, her steps tentative as she encountered an object that sent a chill down her spine. Slowly, she lowered her head and let out a sigh. Many would covet a day in the luxurious Creston mansion, she muttered, kicking the brick aside. Though I doubt anyone has seen the cellar. Uncle wants it to remain creepy. Shivering in the chilly air, Ellen wrapped her arms around herself as her breath formed visible puffs in front of her. She surveyed the rough and cracked bricks, the dusty smell lingering, creating an atmosphere resembling an ancient dungeon straight out of a movie. She cautiously reached the first room, her fingertips exploring the wall until they found the familiar texture. Following its path, she located the chain and carefully pulled, illuminating the main wine room. The shelves stood in perfect order, 3 rows displaying bottles that had withstood the test of time, some dating back centuries, surpassing even the age of the mansion itself. The mingled scents of grapes and rich soil enveloped the space. She stood at the entrance and called again. Molly, where are you, girl? She scanned the room. Her fluffy white dog had blended into the darkness. Ellen's teeth chattered, unsure whether to continue her exploration or retreat to the surface. She reached for her flashlight, flicking it on and casting its beam across the floor. Initially deciding to leave, she took a few steps before abruptly halting, her instincts urging her to turn back. Raising her hand, she directed the light towards the end of the aisle. Why is it open? The second basement room, located at the bottom of the aisle, had always been secured with a massive iron lock. As a child, Ellen would attempt to sneak inside, only to be caught each time. Her final endeavor resulted in Uncle James personally securing the door with a hefty chisel. Now, after 12 years, the absence of the imposing lock caught her off guard. Her teeth continued to chatter, yet an inexplicable curiosity compelled her to slowly crack the door open. Her fingers scraped harshly against the rough, damp brick wall. She sought for a chain or key to illuminate the pitch-dark room. Suddenly, her fingertip brushed against a cold metal chain. In an instant, a haunting image flashed through her mind. In the dark room, something being dragged along the floor, shrouded in white. Her breaths came rapidly as she quickly withdrew her hand. Am I hallucinating again? Her voice trembled. Taking 2 deep breaths, she slowly raised her hand once more. Now is not the time for delusions, she reminded herself, her voice barely above a whisper. She pressed her lips together, holding her breath for a second, then placed her hand on the wall once more. As she discovered the chain and pulled, the lantern stubbornly refused to light up. Great, she exclaimed in frustration. Sweeping her flashlight across the walls, she carefully scanned the room. The beam of light revealed an empty space, devoid of anything out of the ordinary. However, in one corner, a tall object stood concealed beneath a gray-white sheet. Curiosity getting the better of her, she zoomed in with her flashlight and taking a few steps forward, her feet caught on something. With a sharp gasp, she fell to her knees, exclaiming, "Ouch, damn bricks." Shining her phone light on the floor, it became apparent that it wasn't a brick, but rather a long sheet unfurled on the ground. Leaning forward, her breathing quickened and her entire being trembled with unease. Summoning her courage, she reached out and grabbed hold of the fabric, yanking it back abruptly. A guttural scream erupted from deep within her as shock seized her body. She recoiled in horror, her hands instinctively flying to cover her mouth. Her eyes widened in disbelief, frozen in the moment. 1 hour ago, Ellen faced the imposing gold-embellished door, adorned with delicate Victorian swirls on the handles. She raised a hand towards the doorbell but paused, glancing around. Twilight had descended, bringing a biting cold with it. Lawns and boxwood hedges lay buried under a blanket of snow. Let's face it, she breathed deeply, then exhaled and rang the bell. The doors opened majestically like a fairy tale castle welcoming its princess within. Ellen stepped inside where 2 young maids smiled by the entrance. Her gaze surveyed their simple black dresses and starched white aprons. "Let me take your coat, young lady," one offered cheerfully. "Here we go. Welcome to the 19th century." Ellen frowned and muttered under her breath. "Ellen, call me Ellen," she raised her voice. Shedding her oversized dark coat, she crumpled and tossed it to the maid. Dragging her muddy boots along the small rug, she worked to remove packed snow and filth. The other maid shouted, "Master, master, the young lady is here." Ellen stood frozen at the entrance for a moment, the scene before her unchanged from ages past. Memories flooded her mind, taking her back to the day of her parents' burial ceremony. The grandeur of the towering ceilings and the mesmerizing crystal chandelier overhead left her feeling adrift. Walking down the main corridor, she felt like a 10-year-old once again. Her gaze captivated by the tall bronze Venus figures that lined the walls. They still had the power to steal her amber eyes, momentarily distracting her from the reality of how this majestic house had shaped her life. At the end of the corridor, Uncle James awaited her. Despite being in his 50s, he exuded grace and elegance, dressed in a bespoke suit of coal black. A classic light gray neckerchief completed his refined look. Ellen had always believed that her presence was the reason for her uncle's lifelong bachelorhood, considering his striking appearance. However, her departure at 18 had been driven by more than just that. Now, after 4 years, she found herself standing before him once again on Christmas Eve. Uncle James clasped his hands behind his back, his gaze fixated on her face for what seemed like an eternity. No emotion betrayed his stoic expression, yet a glimmer of a smile flickered in his eyes. Ellen's spirits dampened as his attention shifted to the ring adorning her lip. "Uncle James," she spoke softly, breaking the silence. His eyes traveled from the lip ring to her nose piercings, the strands of pink hair, and the chipped nail polish on her fingers. Repeating herself, she gently inquired, "It's been years, how are you?" Her uncle cleared his throat before responding. "Welcome," he replied curtly, swiftly turning away to stride down the hall. Ellen followed behind, maintaining a safe distance. In the main hall, Ellen found herself standing before a majestic 2-meter Christmas tree adorned with glimmering golden balls, stars, and shiny strings. A table nearby was piled high with vibrant gifts, adding a burst of color to the room. Despite the crackling warmth of the fireplace, a lingering chill permeated the house. Uncle James sat rigidly in a regal chair, engrossed in an economic magazine. Ellen studied his cold demeanor, her voice barely above a whisper as she muttered, "Did you really expect him to jump up and embrace you after 4 years? He doesn't care, not even after 40 years. "Welcome, young lady," a warm woman's voice interrupted Ellen's thoughts. "Your support means a lot to us. If you'd like to see more content, please subscribe to our channel."